This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus ROCKED.
This is Six Tackles with Gus. Great to be back with you for another week. And do we have some stuff to get through today? We've got breaking news at the top of the podcast today. Tim Sheens has been axed or stood down, one of the two, as Tigers coach from next year. I'll get Gus's thoughts on that. A tale of two props. Tino Haas recommits to Brisbane while Tavita swaps the boots for boxing. Extraordinary. I'll get Gus to take us through all of that. The announcement of the 2023 Pacific Championships. End of season international rugby league is back, ladies and gentlemen. That's so exciting. And can Sam Walker save the Roosters season? Gus, there is a lot going on in the great game of rugby league.
Hello, Matthew. Rugby league, the game that keeps on giving.
It's just amazing. It's just amazing. So much to talk about. I can't believe what's happened with Tavita. I can't wait to hear your... not that you've got anything to explain, but see how things went down there. Tavita Pangai, 27, is going to retire from rugby league. Let's kick it off with yes or no, though.
Yes! No. Dear.
Well, the whole nation is swept up in Matildas' fever. Amazing television numbers last week, and they're up against England in the semi-final tonight. And this Matildas game, Phil Gould, will be the biggest sporting event Australia's seen since Cathy Freeman.
Certainly is. Were you at Cathy Freeman's gold medal night?
I was not in the stadium, but I was at one of those sites at Sydney Olympic Park watching it on a big screen, and it was something I remember.
One of the most extraordinary things I've ever experienced in my life. When the Olympics were in Sydney, I was fortunate enough to be working in radio at the time, and we were actually the host broadcaster in the Sydney for the Sydney Olympics, and we were running some shows out from there. And my job every day was to go to any sport that I wanted during the day. I could just walk around the Olympic precinct.
Tough gig.
Go to any sport, and they just ring me every hour on the hour, and I'd have to give a 1-minute report of where I was. I was at the handball. I was at this. I tried to pick the most obscure sports I could. And then the second week, I'd bought a membership to Stadium Australia, to the Olympic venue, and we went every night for the track and field in the stadium there. And of course, the big night was Cathy Freeman running in the 400-metre final. And I remember it distinctly because I'm sitting there, and I had some guest passes, and we had some memberships, and I'm actually sitting with Brad Fittler, and I'm sitting with Greg Alexander. Right?
Oh, how good.
Two of the old Panthers, and boys that I had a lot to do with, and who had played football at the highest level and had competed at the highest level. And we're sitting there as they're walking the track going around to the start for the 400-metre final, and she took her tracksuit off, and she had that grey running suit, remember, and the crowd just went aghast. She hadn't run in those in the semi-finals. What was this?
Yeah.
It looked like a spacesuit, you know. And I turned around, and Brad and Greg were both holding beers, and the beers were shaking. They were shaking with nerves.
Oh.
And I thought, well, here's two blokes that have played at the highest level in sport, and they were so nervous for her. The stadium was so nervous for her. And when she surged to the lead, just turning down the straight, we were on the other side of the stadium. We were in the back straight. So when she turned into the straight and took the lead, I've never heard a roar like it. It was like
I'm getting goosebumps thinking about that.
1,000 jets just flying overhead. The stadium rumbled, and she went past the line, and it was just an incredible experience. And she sat down on the track, and she took her hood off, and we've seen all the pictures. It was the most unbelievable sporting event, or sporting experience I'd ever been to.
For an Australian too, like from an Australian viewer's point of view.
Well, that's the thing with the Matildas.
Yeah.
That's the thing with the Matildas, because this is, and Australia's had its wonderful performers, but we've never been a top world nation in athletics. We've had our odd Olympic champions, but we've never had as some of the bigger countries have had. So that was a real thrill for us. And a young Indigenous girl from Australia, and she just brought the country together. And the whole Olympics, I remember
was
the
awesome.
time, it was brilliant what it did for the whole city and country. And
we're only 9 years away from another Olympics in Australia.
yeah, well, I hope I live to see it. I don't know if I'll live
You'll be
to see it,
reporting on that.
Anyway, but it was just brilliant. So, and the Matildas thing is the same. I mean, sitting there during that penalty shootout, I'm I'm calling the game on Saturday night when the penalty shootout is on, and
I was calling on the radio. We were trying to call two at once.
You're trying to, you're trying to watch what was happening, but just I could feel the nerves.
Oh,
you know,
it's
and
awful.
Because it's your Australian colours. I don't follow soccer, and I don't follow soccer. I don't follow women's soccer for sure, but this has captured the imagination of the Australians because it's our girls in green and gold. Women's sport is growing so big in this country, both in rugby league and other sports and cricket and now soccer. The Matildas have forged a great record. A number of our girls are international performers, and we've got one of the best players in the world in Sam Kerr, and she's on the field, and she's going to take a penalty too. Like it was just brilliant theatre.
Insane.
And the replay after the missed penalty goal and everything that was happening.
There was 10 penalty kicks each.
Yeah, and you're trying to watch that, but it was just. But that's
awesome.
And everyone will be watching this game. Everyone, you won't. There'll be TVs everywhere. Everyone will be tuned into this game because it's our national team in a sport where we are not world champions in anything.
And we're playing England.
England. How fitting. How fitting.
Oh.
How fitting.
Gee, imagine if we beat them at football and
well,
made
as long,
the World Cup final.
As long as they don't change the ball at some
That's
stage during the game.
If it's not doing anything, they'll slip the Duke soccer ball out there.
Yeah.
Go, girls.
No, good on them.
And you know what? I think Australia has welcomed this because it feels like society is... I don't feel like there's a great deal of unity in society, probably around the world at the moment. So anything that galvanises the public is a good thing.
Don't get me into philosophical.
No,
thinking.
God.
I got some real problems with the world at the moment.
Have you?
I got real problems.
Do you want to list them?
No,
Do you want to start?
I'm waiting for Festivus with the airing of grievances at the end of the year.
Sounds like you need a long lunch.
I've got a lot of problem with you people.
What, me?
Everyone.
Yeah.
I've got problems with the world.
Question number 2. Ryan Pappenhausen's impending return has the Panthers worried.
No. I don't think anything's got the Panthers worried. There's only one or two things that can beat the Panthers, and that's in Panthers' control. So I don't think they'll be worried too much about that. But what is wonderful is that Pappenhausen is back. He's fitting well again. Whether he's battle-hardened for this end of the season with the Melbourne Storm and can make a difference there, well, it's really irrelevant. It's the fact that he's playing can be celebrated, and let's hope he gets plenty of time and it goes good. I hope it goes wonderfully well for him. But right at the moment, the Panthers are in cruise control, and it's theirs to lose. They won't lose it. Brisbane Broncos are improving virtually by the week. Melbourne Storm, as they usually do at this time of year, have put in a couple of really good performances again. And they'll be worthy challenges, but you're taking on the two-time premiers. And as I've said before, I don't think they're going to stop at 3. I think this will be a long time before they wrest that trophy away from them. So, yeah, they'll pay him due respect, but I don't think they're losing any sleep over it.
The reason I ask is because he played 80 minutes in his second game back for the Sunshine Coast Falcons at the weekend. He had, I think, 2 or 3 try assists. He had a couple of line breaks. And I spoke to Scotty Sattler, who watches Queensland Cup Rugby League very closely. And he said it was like watching men against boys. And he actually said, I reckon he's got faster, was his comment to me, which I thought was quite amazing.
Well, he'll look faster in that. We were actually talking about this. I was talking to our coaches and recruitment people yesterday because, everyone's looking all around the country for NRL quality players because there are just none on the market at the moment. And, because of COVID, we've missed out on a couple of years' development. So you're trying to find those little nuggets that maybe are undiscovered in lower grade football and whether or not you can convert them quickly into an NRL player. That the NRL is so hard at the moment. The good sides are so good. They really are so good. And the inexperienced players get found out very, very quickly, and particularly those that aren't physically up to it. And one of the things I was saying is that it's getting hard. In the old days, you used to be able to find that teenager that, was precocious and that you could pick him, and after a few weeks' work, you could throw him into first grade and he would hold his own. That's getting harder and harder to do. You've got to be kind of looking for players that are NRL quality but not quite getting a go with the club they're at the moment.
Yeah, I heard you talk about that on 100% Footy. You're looking for your toiling tradesmen with good culture.
With good culture and professionals, and they're the ones you're looking for. It's hard now to go back. I've never seen the Queensland Cup and the New South Wales Cup. This standard is as low as I've seen it.
Really?
Yeah, and there are not there are nowhere near enough of those little golden nuggets blokes that you can say go down there. And if he's handling New South Wales Cup, well, he'll handle first grade straight away. It's just not true at the moment. And if you are a genuine NRL player, you're certainly not being interchanged in New South Wales or Queensland Cup. You're playing 80 minutes. If you're a forward playing in New South Wales or Queensland Cup, you need to be playing at least 65, 70 minutes, not being used as a 20-minute interchanger and all that sort of, because they're not going to play first grade. You need to be a 65, 70-minute reserve grade forward if you're going to hope to be an interchange forward in the NRL. And if you're a utility player or you're a back, you're going to be playing 80 minutes every week. So that's the first box he had to tick, was the 80-minute box. Now, whether Melbourne Storm playing for 80 minutes is irrelevant. Even if he comes off the bench and plays 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 60 minutes, and they build him up over a period of time. But right now, he should be handling 80 minutes if he's going to be ready for any sort of stint in the NRL. 30 minutes in the NRL is the equivalent of 70 minutes in the New South Wales Cup with the intensity.
Is that real? Is it? Have you looked at the stats with that?
100%.
Wow.
100%.
That's incredible.
100%. 100%. Well, if you want the right ones. If you want the right ones.
Wow, that's amazing.
You've got to, and when you're looking at a player who might have going through a good period of dominating, you've then got to assess that with the strength of the opposition he's playing against. And reserve grade teams go up and down with performance. Like you'll have a team at the top easily get beaten by a team at the bottom because they've got some NRL talent back in their reserve grade side, and a couple of yours have gone out elsewhere, or some of the younger ones might have gone back to Jersey Flegg in the under-21. So the quality of those teams with all the sides are changing all the time. Sometimes we're bringing up kids to blood them and sending them back, or sending them out to Ron Massey Cup to play against men, but at a lower level. Then bringing them back to see how they handle New South Wales Cup. No, didn't quite handle that, or he's gone good, but now he's getting tired after a month. We'll send him back to Jersey Flegg. They go back to Jersey Flegg in their age group, a much better player, far more confident, and then you bring them up again. It's a whole process that you go through, and there's no rule to it. Some are ready at 18, some are debuting now at 25 and 26. We've seen plenty of that.
A lot of them.
In recent times. So there's no real rule to it, and players can't get discouraged if they're not. This is a long question to the
it is, isn't it?
Panthers.
So the Panthers aren't worried is the answer.
No, the Pappenhausen one.
I was thinking, how do we get to this?
Yeah.
Jarrod Croker was unlucky to never play Origin.
Yeah, look, in another era, he had some really good ones in there. I don't think there was ever a situation where I thought he should have got picked in front of the one that did get selected, but he had some very, very good players playing his era. At that left centre position, he was a specialist left centre, and we had some really good ones that played Origin. There were times where I'm sure he was considered, and had he played, he would never have let them down.
Yeah.
I think he would have been Origin class, but as it turned out, selectors just found one better each time they picked the team. It's a very specialist position. He's done a wonderful job for the Canberra Raiders, and I congratulated him on his decision to retire, and I think he's timed it beautifully, and hopefully Canberra give him a good send-off. And
he's been a wonderful ambassador for that club and the game.
Brilliant.
Absolutely sensational. So he'll retire at the end of this year, and the Raiders want to keep him, and he wants to stay around the club. And I think, as you know, you've talked about culture and people that have a passion for the game. We need them in the game, and he's certainly one of them, a 300-game player. Only two of them have done that at Canberra. He's one, and Jason Croker's the other. Jason Taumalolo, Gus, is the greatest Pacifica forward ever.
No.
I ask you that because it's his 250th game coming up this weekend.
Well, that's a big rap to put on him for his 250th game. He's obviously a colossal player, very influential player. He was, I think, one of the first of our 10-year contract players, wasn't he? So good was he as a young fellow. There was big raps on him, massive raps on him in age group football when he was coming through the system. He was just too good for his age group, and he debuted in first grade at a very young age, and everyone went, wow. And then he went through a year or so or two where he was being questioned because he'd probably been rushed a little bit. And there's a whole mental and physical and emotional thing that's got to come together before you can feel a part of that NRL competition. And people started to doubt his work rate or his defence, and he had to come to terms with what being an NRL player was and what a full-time pro was. But he soon worked it out, and then they put him on a 10-year deal, and it's been quite a relationship up there. He was part of that premiership winning team, obviously, back in the day, playing with Thurston and those players. But if you're going to say the greatest Pacifica player ever... forward, Sonny Bill Williams, pork chop, was he?
No.
I think Sonny Bill Williams was the greatest Pacifica player I've seen.
Hold fire there, because I've got something on that later.
There's plenty of good ones around, though, at the moment.
Ruben Wiki.
Plenty of good ones. Well,
Last one.
He was a Kiwi, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, I probably need to
What's his
define.
heritage?
I probably need to define Pacific,
Define,
because he's played. Taumalolo's played 10 tests for New Zealand, but 14 for Tonga.
Yeah.
So, and Ruben Wiki's a Kiwi, like an out-and-out Kiwi, isn't he?
Is he a Maori?
Maori, yeah. I mean, SBW played all his footy for New Zealand too. So maybe if you take New Zealand out of it,
but he's Samoan.
Right.
He's Samoan.
Well, if you know what, I'm not going to argue with Sonny.
Yeah.
Sonny, it's you. Last one. West Tigers can challenge for the 8 next season. Ooh.
Yeah, I've been saying all along they're a very talented group.
Last 3 weeks they played good.
No, they've played good a lot more than that this year. Their lowly position on the ladder is a little unfair, particularly with only 3 wins. I think they deserve more than 3 wins to their credit. But I said even before they won a game this year, they lost their first 5 or 6 or something, and then I said there's a good team emerging here. They've got some really good young talent, and there's some good players coming through their system. They're just not ready for the NRL yet full time, but they'll gradually get there. And some of their senior players were letting them down. It wasn't the young fellas letting them down. And then they went through a good period there. And then Luke Brooks got hurt, and they went back into their doldrums again. And Luke Brooks has come back, and all of a sudden they're playing good football.
Super. Hey, what do you think about a spine of Buller, Caesar, Sullivan, Coruscant next year?
Well, it's you got the experience there of Appy with them 3 kids. I think that that's the makings of something. I wouldn't be expecting miracles straight away, but all the experience they're getting now is really, you look at the Broncos now and how they were back in 2020 when they were wooden spooners.
Yeah, they're getting pumped every week.
They were getting pumped every week. And, there was Payne Haas's and Fleglers and those sort of fellas in that team too. Carrigan, who are now part of this team. So, losing is a part of the process. Coming in is part of the process. And kids don't, it's sometimes hard. If kids are debuting in a team where the senior talent is not performing or is not good enough, it's very, very hard on the development of those kids. But they eventually find their feet and they find their way, and they just need some quality senior people, professionals around them, and it can happen over time. I'd love to see where the West Tigers are going to be in 3 or 4 years' time.
Well, we know next year,
if they can hold on to all those young players.
That's going to be the challenge, isn't it? Particularly the Bullers, etc. The news today, of course, and this is the segue into the main story. The West Tigers are set to drop a bombshell barely a season into what they're calling a 5-year plan, calling time on Tim Sheens' tenure as head coach. The Tigers have responded to concerns raised by key stakeholders within the club, reducing the role of the 2005 Premiership winning coach. It's expected Sheens won't coach next year, nor will he return to the role of general manager, which he assumed before he took over the job of Michael Maguire as head coach. Of course, Sheens, basically sacked Michael Maguire and took on the job himself at the urgings of senior people within the club. It's worth pointing out, people saying, he sacked Michael Maguire to get the job himself. That's not what happened. They decided that Michael Maguire wasn't the person, and others urged him to take on the role with Benji underneath him. However,
that's not exactly right either.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is he didn't sack the bloke so he could take his job.
No, he didn't.
That was not what he did.
He didn't. No,
so anyone that says he did that is wrong.
No, what happened was, in fact, they had made up their mind that they're going to replace Michael Maguire at the end of the season, not at that early stage.
Yes.
And there had sort of been mutings of this for some time, but Tim Sheens had come in as general manager, and Tim himself was going to wait till the end of the season. But what they decided upon was that they would go out and buy the next young development coach and build the club with them over a period of time, and that was to be Cameron Ciraldo.
Yes.
From the Panthers, who was doing great things out there. Cameron Ciraldo was the most sought after. He'd been sought after by several clubs, actually, which never really made the press. There were a number of clubs that had sounded him out, including some of the big ones.
You beat them all, eh?
Well, that's not how it worked out either. But what happened was, after Magic Round in 2022, Trent Barrett resigned from the Bulldogs. And my understanding is that Tigers got very, very nervous straight away that if we were looking for a head coach at the Bulldogs, that my relationship with Cameron would mean I'd go straight out there and be looking to recruit him. So they needed to act swiftly. And that's why the Maguire thing was brought forward all those months. So it was, all right, well, we need to move now if we want to, in the hope, and they went very public with it, what they were going to offer Cameron Ciraldo and what they wanted from him, and interviewed him and all that. And they didn't want to do that behind Michael Maguire's back. So they decided they would cut the cord now, and then they would go all out, and they went out very publicly with the pursuit of Cameron Ciraldo, who was probably not ready to make a decision at that time. And, you know, and it's history now that he joined the Bulldogs some months later. But so there was never any suggestion that Tim Sheens moved Michael Maguire aside,
correct,
because he wanted to coach.
That's right. But that is what is being portrayed in some sections of the media. It's not true.
That's the media. That's you people, right? That's you people.
Stop me.
I'm trying
to give the right story.
There are always conspiracy theories. In fact, it was the media that came up with the suggestion for Tim Sheens to coach him. When it became obvious that Ciraldo was now not coming to the West Tigers, and at this stage he hadn't made any decision on his future, nor had our discussions with him progressed to that point. All he had decided was he wasn't going to take on the West Tigers job. Then it was suggested, well, where do they go from there? And they're hard to find coaches. Like, you'd hate to be out looking for an future NRL coach now. They'd sort of gone out very publicly and made the case that that's what they wanted with Cameron Ciraldo. They missed their target. So what do we do now?
Yeah,
and it was suggested, well, do we get a couple of young coaches in and Tim Sheens can mentor them, which is what was decided. They got two of the club legends, Benji Marshall, Robbie Farah. They set on this 5-year course, which it's going to take that long to get Benji and Robbie and the club up to speed in that area. And Tim Sheens would be, for want of a better word, the head coach in a system where he's developing younger coaches. And I'm quite sure that Benji and Robbie and other people are doing most of the coaching there. David Fern is the defence coach, and they do most of the actual hands-on coaching.
Yeah.
Tim Sheens just uses his experience, and he deals with the media, he deals with the brickbats, he deals with the board, he deals with the sponsors, he deals with the media.
So, Gus, why is it necessary to move on the mentor then?
I don't know. That's why that's happened now. I don't know. You'd have to speak to the people within the club as to what pressure they were feeling, or whether or not Benji has decided that he needs full reign, which I can't imagine he hasn't had. I'm pretty sure he has had full reign. I just don't understand it. Or whether or not there's been some mutual arrangement that Tim's doesn't want to do it anymore. I don't know how it's played out. I've got no information. It's just come up on the newswires this morning that that Tim Sheens, well, has he been sacked? Is it official, or are they saying they're going to do it?
So he hasn't been seen at Concord the last couple of days,
right.
And his management, I believe, have said that he stood down from the role.
Okay, so he stood down.
Well, yes.
Okay, well,
I think that's the official line.
Let's get some real clarity from the West Tigers and from Tim Sheens before we go jumping to conclusions about what's happened. But it could be Tim's decision yet. We don't know.
So the Tigers are going to go into next year with Benji Marshall as head coach.
Well, at least he'll have had 12 months under his belt.
Oh, geez, big ask, isn't it?
It's a massive ask. It's a massive ask. And I'm an unabashed Benji Marshall admirer. I've admired Benji Marshall's career. I talk about his career, the stages he went through, his career and his life and everything that he went through, and his football, and a precocious young talent, and then a great game manager at the back end of his career. He knows the game extremely well. I can't speak for his coaching acumen. And it's a very big difference between knowing the game and having knowledge of the game, or being able to play the game and actually be a head coach.
Yeah.
You can coach the game and still not be a head coach.
Yeah, which is what they're trying to do, which is what they've been trying to do.
Which a lot of people have found out.
Yeah.
A lot of people have found out. The pressure and the role of head coach these days is incredibly intense, and it's incredibly difficult. And you are subject a lot of the time to the quality of people that you are able to recruit underneath you, because it's such a big job. Such a big job. You don't coach just a team, you coach a club. And some clubs are bigger than others. Some clubs just run a first grade side and some development players, and they've got a squad of 36, and that's all you have to worry about. Other clubs that rely very heavily on development are running, junior representative teams and senior representative teams and New South Wales and Queensland Cup teams, and there's a whole number of people that you've got to look after there with staff, and it's a very, very big job. And those that have been assistant coaches that go into head coach roles and end up back being assistant coaches because...
Well, Trent Barrett's a great example of that.
Yeah, well, there's a number of them that have gone that way. Justin Holbrook has just taken on... He's gone to England and got silverware. He's come back to the Gold Coast Titans, and now he's going to be an assistant coach at the Roosters, where he did coach there before. You know, Michael Maguire's assistant coach down there. He won a premiership with South. He's an assistant coach down there now at Canberra. It's happened to a number of them. David Furner is an assistant coach at the Tigers. Trent Barrett's now an assistant coach at Parramatta. John Cartwright's an assistant coach at the Broncos. There are a number of... Steve Georgalis is still assistant coach in the system. He's had a couple of interim jobs. You know, like it's
Josh
not...
Hannay,
It's not...
John Morris.
Yeah, it's
With that
not
in mind,
an easy job.
Are you surprised that they've decided to throw Benji right into the coalface here?
Well, he was the one they signed to do it.
But are you surprised that they've gone away from their initial development plan and they've cut the ripcord and they're going to throw him in?
Yeah.
Are you surprised?
Yeah. I think it would be unfair to judge that what they decided to do at the start of the year, that they were going to do it over the next 2, 3, 5 years and phase him in. I wonder what they thought the results were going to be, the immediate results were going to be. If, in fact, it's the club that's pushed him out. You know, by the end of this podcast, we might find out the truth. I don't know.
Well, let's leave that aside.
But
And
as
the
it
fact
stands,
is that Benji Marshall will be coached, whatever the circumstances, he will take over.
Surely Tim Sheens and Benji weren't going to be judged on the performance of the team this year. And if anyone's watching the football, which I said it when they'd lost their first 6 or 7 games, I said there's a good team emerging here. They come out and won their next 2. Then they come out and put 60 on the Cowboys.
And they've won a game since.
Right, and then, but then they, Luke Brooks tore his hamstring.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they went through the Luke Brooks, will we sign, whether you won't sign, they offered him a contract. He said no. Well, that knocks your backside in again. You know, it's good, and they'd probably handled that badly.
The last 3 weeks, they've actually looked like a proper football team.
They are a good football team, mate. They've got some good kids there. They are a good football team, and they're going to be better next year.
So if they've lost patience in having a development system,
who protects Benji now?
Well, this is the question I'm going to ask. Because he's got a whole bunch of young kids and a new team next year. Are the results going to get any better?
Yeah, and then what they're saying, they're not going to have any general manager?
It says here Tim Sheens will not be given his old job back.
All right, so are they going to appoint someone into that role to help Benji?
I don't know.
Have they thought? And who are they going to get to do that?
I don't know.
All right. I don't know. I don't know. I want to know how now Benji Marshall will be judged, because if we get to the stage next year and they're still, which I don't think they will be, I think they'll be up in the middle of the run.
Well, if they've won half a dozen games this time next year, Benji's right under the pump.
Well, they've only won 3 this year. If they win 6 next year, he's doubled it. So
I've only won 3.
They've only won 3.
Oh, shit. He's got enormous if he's won 6.
The teams in the cellar are really struggling, mate. When you're in the cellar in this competition, it takes you an age to get out of it.
All right, so that's the situation, and Tim Sheens joins.
I want to know.
Well, there's so much
how Benji will be judged and how long they will give him now.
The club has the club thought about this? The club, would they have thought about all these questions before they've made this decision?
I don't know, mate. I don't work for the Tigers.
No, you don't, and I'll bet you're glad you don't.
I've got enough trouble.
Let's leave it there.
At the moment.
Great news. International football is officially back on the calendar, and I've been given the green light, Gus, to make an official announcement here on Six Tackles with Gus.
What a scoop.
Scoop.
Okay.
Is that the Pacific Championships of 2023 will be live and free here on 9. So the announcement has come through formally today that this competition is being set up. The Australian Rugby League Commission has announced the details of a Pacific Championships involving international men's and women's matches in October and November this year. And it's also a partnership with the federal government, which you might have seen through some of the press this morning. 6 men's teams and 7 women's teams will take part in the tournament this year across 2 pools, which start on October 14. Now, the teams involved, Australia, obviously, Samoa, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Cook Islands, and Fiji. So they're the teams that will be involved. And Tonga joined the women's comp. So the men's teams, there's the 6, and then you add Tonga for the women. So there it is. We'll get officially international football at the end of the year, Gus, which I think everyone is very hungry for after the World Cup, and you'll be able to watch it here on Nine's Wide World of Sports.
So you'll be in the Pacific Islands calling?
Hopefully.
You'll be heading up to call.
Hopefully.
Good boy.
Yes. Well, you'll be coming with me. We'll take your boardies. We'll get a bure and we'll get up in the morning and jump into the ocean and go watch the footy. Fabulous. So the host cities are going to be Hamilton, New Zealand, Melbourne, Port Moresby, and Townsville, I believe. They're the hubs.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Men's and Women's International Rugby League. Unfortunately, Tavita Pangai Jr. is not going to be part of it.
No.
What on earth?
That was a bit of a thunderbolt. Well, it was a thunderbolt. Just came out of the blue.
So he's had a couple of fights before.
Yeah.
Did he have a flag with you that he was looking at going full-time into the fight game?
No, not really. Not really. He'd done it from sort of promotional perspective, and he did it for fitness last year. Last year at the end of the season, he he wanted to fight. He wanted to have one more fight, and I said, well, you can fight if you go and live with Sonny Bill. So he lived with Sonny Bill for 8 weeks, and Sonny Bill trained him, and he lost 12, 13 kilos and come back brilliantly. Went and had his fight, won it easily, but when he came back, it was like a new player. He was 109, 110 kilos and was one of the leaders at training all off-season. It was really good.
Why'd you tell him to go live with Sonny Bill?
If he was going to do it, he had to do it properly. He had to get fit. He had to, if that's what he wanted to do, I wanted him to do it properly. And I thought it would be good for him to have a mentor like Sonny Bill. And
But we all need a mentor like Sonny Bill.
yeah, and to understand, Sonny Bill and talk about professional sporting life and different things. And Sonny Bill really took him under his wing and trained him and got him ready, and he won the fight comfortably. And he came back to training pre-Christmas brilliantly. And then unfortunately got an injury after Christmas, which kept him out for nearly about round 8 or 9 this year. His form during the year has been mixed. He's had some good days and he's had some not so good days, pretty much like the team itself. They have some good days and they have some terrible days too. And they had an ordinary day on the weekend up at Newcastle, and Tavita was nowhere near his best. And in a discussion with the head coach yesterday morning, just in personal review, because they all go and have a personal review with their coaches, their positional coaches and the head coach. And what was evident was too that they were sort of giving him a pass on that because he had some personal issues during the week with the family, which I don't really want to talk about publicly, but they were personal family issues that were causing him concern, and we were aware of that. So we sort of, felt that as a factor. And he said yes. He said it was a difficult week and it was on his mind. He spoke to Cameron Saturday yesterday. He said, it was on my mind. He said, and I let the boys down. I let myself down, let the team down. And there was no one that really was out there leading the way and holding everyone accountable for what was happening in that first half. And it was only the first 40 minutes really that was bad. But it was very bad, and they were all a bit down in the dumps yesterday. And he said he's a deep thinker, Tavita, and he just suddenly blurted out to the coach. He said, I think I'll give it away. And the coach said, what are you talking about? And he said, I think this will be my last year. And he said, I think I'll go and find something else to do. He said, and I think it comes down to the pressure of expectation and the pressure of personal performance and the standards he'd like to play at, but he's obviously not at the moment. And Cameron rang me straight after it because we just kind of put it down to the fact that he was a bit down about the performance the day before and the performance. And, it's not unlike him to take a lot on his own shoulders. There are a number of times that he said, he wish he was on less money. He wish, he didn't have all this expectation. And I think he's a bit sensitive to media. I think getting picked in the Origin side gave him a pick up and then he got dropped. And there's been a whole lot of things. He's quite a sensitive kid for a big, strong brute of a man. He's quite a sensitive young man, and he's a deep thinker, and he's obviously very family conscious, and he's got his religion as well. And he's anyway, he kind of said, that's where I'm thinking, and that's what I'm doing. And Cameron rang me, and I said, we'll have a talk to him tomorrow and see what happens from there. Then they went to the team meeting where all the players in the team meeting they're in their meeting, and there was a little bit of an honesty session about who did what and who did. And Tavita gets up and apologises for his performance the day before, which is not unusual from a player if he has a bad day, and just says, I'm sorry, I've had some personal issues. I don't want to delve into it. He said, but, I probably didn't turn up with the right focus, or I didn't turn up with the right attitude, and it sort of got away from me, and I apologise. I should have done better, etc., etc., etc. In fact, I think this next 3 weeks have been my last 3 games, and I'm going to give rugby league away, and which stunned everybody. Cameron didn't expect him to go there. They'd had that conversation downstairs about the form and the game and all that, and he said, in fact, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I think I'm going to give it away.
Wow.
And that was that. Now,
Goodness.
These sort of things, once they're out, they're out. So they find their way into the media.
You're with it about 30 seconds.
And the players had left the building, and we had a job to try and get hold of Tavita because they rang me. I was at a hospital yesterday, and they rang me to tell me what had happened. I said, well, Cameron just rang me 20 minutes ago to tell me what had happened. I said, why, what's happened now? He said, oh, he's gone and admitted it to the players, and he's told the players that's it. He's leaving at the end of the year. He's retiring. And I said, well, if he's told the players, it'll be in the media shortly. And they said, yeah, but we're already getting phone calls. And I said, well, okay, well, you need to get Tavita. You need to sit him down and confirm what he's thinking and confirm that he's happy for that to be an official announcement. And, we haven't spoken about what happens to his contract or what he's expecting or what's going to happen from there. And so an hour later, Aaron Warburton rang me back. He's our CEO, and just said that he's spoken to Tavita. He's adamant. This is what he wants to do. He doesn't want any money for next year. He just wants to make a clean break at the end of the season. He's going to pursue a boxing career and and get on with his life in another sport. So I didn't actually get to speak to Tavita till this morning. So I went to the Bulldogs before I came here today. I'd had some procedures yesterday, and I just so I went over and had a talk to him. Firstly, how's his family? Firstly, how is he going? How is he since making that sort of announcement yesterday? And he was pretty strong. He was pretty adamant. So we'll go through the process.
So today,
and
with the benefit of a night's sleep, he hasn't changed his resolve?
No, it's going to happen. So, and of course now you'll get all the conspiracy theorists that he was forced out or this and that, or we negotiated a settlement, which is all absolute rubbish.
Yes, there was one question I wanted to ask you, actually. I saw published somewhere yesterday, I can't remember where, some suggestion that the club had given him an ultimatum that he has to play rugby league or be a fighter.
Absolute rubbish, absolute lies. Would never happened that way whatsoever. No way in the world did that happen. And nor has he discussed or wanted any settlement for his next year's contract. He's virtually walked away from it, which is, as I said to him today, that's a very brave call. He said, my family thinks I'm stupid. And I said, well, everyone raises their eyebrows these days. I mean, people just don't walk away from contracts that are that lucrative. But he's his own man. That's what his heart wants to do.
Incredible.
And that's what he wants to do. He's going to back himself. He's going to back himself in that sport. Whether he rethinks and comes back to rugby league down the track, I don't know.
He's only 27, so there's time, isn't there?
Yeah, you don't know with Tavita. But he's not the first one to do this.
No.
He's followed his heart.
He's the first since Anthony Mundine, though.
Yeah. He's followed his heart, and that's what he wants to do. So all the conspiracy theorists, can go jump in the lake because that's, and then it's, they're clearing the decks. They want money for this. They want absolute rubbish, absolute poppycock.
Can I say, there's something I admire about that. The expectation on professional athletes, particularly in rugby league, as you know, and the adulation and, the support they get from fans and, the constant pumping up of the tyres, etc. For someone to have the fortitude to say, you know what, this isn't for me anymore, I'm going to walk away.
Yeah.
That takes a pretty strong human.
Yeah. And I think it's been on his mind for a while. I think the selection in the Origin side was a pick-me-up, and then getting dropped after that game was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
And I think the Bulldogs have been up and down all year. I mean, they're a poorly performing team this year. They've had 7 wins, but they haven't really been able to match it with the top sides in the competition. And he, being a marquee player with that club, obviously feels as though he bears a lot of the responsibility, which is unfair. It's a team game. It's not one person's job. Tavita wasn't there to save our club. It's up to a lot of people to do that. But he was feeling the pressure. He's often talked to Cameron Ciraldo about it. Cameron had a relationship with him because he went to Penrith that time when they played in the grand final.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Tavita, they won the comp that year. Tavita didn't play in the grand final, but he played in a number of games in the lead up to the grand final. So they had a relationship, and he gets on very well with Cameron. And Cameron's always stuck by him. And it was kind of when he mentioned it to Cameron yesterday. He rang me and I said, "Oh, he could be just having one of those mornings. We'll just see where it settles." But he went straight up to the team room and told the players.
You can imagine the response. What?
He left Cameron a bit gobsmacked, and then the phone calls really started. I'm in.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So anyway.
Oh well. Wish him well. So he's got 3 more games left.
Yeah, and he's promised to put his best foot forward, and he's going to empty himself out over the next 3 weeks. And I hope he finishes on a good note. I'm sure he will. And we've always got his back. I said to him today, I said, well, you're always, once a Bulldog, always a Bulldog. If you need anything at all in the future or any support with your career, not that I've got any influence in the boxing world or what have you, but whatever you do between now and then is, we'll support him. But conspiracy theorists, as I say, they're way wide of the mark, and it's deliberate. It's just aimed to agitate and create headlines.
Maybe he can fight in Las Vegas during round 0.
There you go. See, there you go. He could fight Gal.
Gal versus Tavita, and Don King could promote it.
Yeah.
Don't you have a direct line to Don King?
No, I don't.
Would you like one?
No.
Hey, Gus Gould.
No.
Gus Goulding from Australia.
Wouldn't know me from a bar of soap, mate.
Well done, Tavita. Oh, by the way, would you like to come back as a front rower, Gus? Because Payne Haas has signed for 1.2 a year. Tino signed for, what, about the same, for 10 years. Gee, the days, I think I remember Wayne Bennett saying years and years ago, I'm not going to pay a front rower more than 300,000. Right. Well, that's all changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, he probably still doesn't.
Maybe. Although I'm sure he paid Glenn Lazarus and Shane Webke a bit more than that. But, well, comparatively, in terms of salary cap percentage. Big money. You said Payne Haas would stay. You didn't. I could never see him leaving Brisbane.
Well, the point I made, and all this hysteria we go through about this November 1 deadline, the year before they come off contract, right? They start that 12 months in advance now. Right, they start talking about the last November 1. They start talking about next November 1 for when they're coming contract in 12 months' time.
I know.
And it's just designed to... And in rugby league, well, in our world, in recruitment, retention and building rosters and all that sort of thing, it's no big deal to us. We don't talk about it, but it's the agitation it creates with the fans and the media, and everyone gets speculating about it. And I said on the show the other night... Michael Chamis race. I said, mate, they're not off contract for 18 months.
Yeah.
And even if they want to put themselves on contract on the market on November 1, that's months away. I can't talk to them about that, or no club can talk to them before November 1 anyway. But managers get in the mix now, and managers want to promote this and do that, and the media wants to promote this and do that. They all want it done 18 months in advance. So now it's done. What are you going to do? What are you going to talk about for the next 18 months about Payne Haas and Tino? Nothing.
Oh, the
Tino thing was extraordinary.
You keep blaming me for everything.
The Tino thing was extraordinary because
big money.
They gave Tino the absolute upper hand in that negotiation and contract. Same with young Fafita, because they had this clause in it about the coach going, made them a free agent. How do you have those inserted in contracts?
Well, I'm actually wondering, and you've spoken about how difficult it is to recruit players at the moment, particularly when you're a team that isn't fighting out for competition.
100%.
Maybe
all power,
they had to concede in that area.
All power is with the manager and the player. All power is with the manager and the player. And that's what drives prices up the way they are. That's what drives agitation. It's what drives fans. It's what drives the media. There's nothing to quell that and make it sensible. It's honestly, all power is with them. So, and managers use the media to agitate. And it doesn't worry us in clubland. It doesn't. But it worries the fans. It worries the sponsors. It worries the boards. It worries everyone else. Us are doing it on a daily basis. We don't worry about it. We know where we're going. We know who we're talking to. We know who's going to be available. We talk to each other. Clubs talk to each other all the time.
Yeah, I know you've been so... you can't go playing silly buggers behind Gus. You just rings the other mob.
And so we all communicate because we let each other. And I think it's only right. I mean, if I want to talk to a player from another club, I'll ring the club and tell them, is it okay? Have you got our blessing? Manager's saying that he's off contract. Manager is saying that he's available. Manager's saying that you're looking to move him on. Manager's saying that if he can find a first grade job somewhere, you'll let him go. They're all these sort of conversations. Then you ring up and you find out, no, we're not letting him go. No, we never said that. The manager's making it up. So you've got to be able to work with people that you trust, and the information you're getting is accurate. And basically the clubs are pretty good. They all But we all know that the big clubs, they don't lose the ones they want to keep. And I've been saying right through all this, they had this big list of players that were coming off contract on November 1. And they put them in the paper and they rise these up and they're going to, all these players are coming off contract November 1 and the fans start saying, well, who are we going to buy? Who are we going to get? And I'm saying they'll all be signed by November 1. All the ones that they want to keep will all be signed by November 1. Maybe one or two will sneak through and put themselves on the market.
Is Jarrod Croker going to leave Penrith?
I don't think so, and there's no reason for him to leave Penrith. There's no reason for him to leave Penrith. I would expect him to sign before November 1. I don't think there's any reason for him to leave Penrith.
No.
Nor is there any reason for Penrith not to want to re-sign him. And it was the same with Payne Haas. I said, if I'm the Broncos, the biggest, most financial, high-profile club in the league, why am I letting potentially the best front rower of all time walk out the gate? It's not going to happen.
They don't lose many, do they?
It's not going to happen. Right? So stop pestering me about, are we talking to this player and that player? All right? I know who's on the market. I know who's accessible. I know who might and might not come to a club like the Bulldogs at this particular point in time. We need to develop talent. We need to develop our future, and that's going to take a long time. You know, and I can't apologise for that. If they want someone to do it quicker, get someone to do it quicker. But it's not going to happen.
Player managers, you're not going to pull the wool over my man's eyes.
I know me player managers. Worry about me player managers. There's some really good ones amongst them. Anyway, they're big deals.
Well, do you think Tino, after, in a funny sort of way, because he had that clause about the coach leaving, it's actually brought the Gold Coast back to the table, and they've locked this bloke up for 10 years now. Yes. Have they got a good deal?
Well, I hope it's a great result. I do. It's got ratchet clauses in it, which means as the cap goes up, his money will go up. And I don't know when that commences. I can't imagine that, 10 years goes. The next broadcast rights deal is in 4 years. I can't imagine after that time there isn't some sort of ratchet clause to accommodate any new salary cap. If we go back in history, 10 years ago, the salary cap was about $6.5 million.
Yeah, so it's doubled.
It's now 11. And going to be more in the next coming years. So if the salary cap doubles, and I don't think it will.
2.4.
Well, that might be the standard. We don't know. We don't know. The average wage now is just under $400,000 a year for the average player on an average wage. $400,000 a year. It's incredible.
It's good money, isn't it?
The minimum wage now is going to be $135,000 a year. Minimum wage. So the minimum wage for a top 30 player was $80,000. Just 12 months ago. So we've signed players on $80,000 who overnight got a $55,000 pay increase. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's obviously, it's shocked you, I can see.
Eh?
You're obviously shocked about it.
I don't get shocked by anything in rugby league, mate.
The coaching
directors have got sick, players are retired to go to boxing. And the headlines don't change, mate, just the names.
You know what? The moment I read that, I thought, I wonder what Gus is doing when Tavita's walked in and said, I'm going to boxing.
I was getting injections in my back at the time. I'm laying face down on a table and
they're pleasant things, aren't they?
Answering the phone, trying to
while you're in the MRI,
working away.
Hello,
working my way through the and we couldn't get hold of the board members. We can't be putting out press releases without getting hold of the board members. They've got busy lives. They're all out and about. They're not reading newspapers and listening to radios and all that sort of thing. So we couldn't get the press release.
Could you imagine the board? He's what?
I said what?
What? Sorry.
And then you've got to explain everything that's happened, and then by then the conspiracy theorists are starting. There are people that are trying to cause trouble and trying to agitate the fans and trying to upset the situation, and they just bald-faced lie. They never apologise for it. They just bald-faced lie about it and get away with it. And you've got no recourse. What are you going to do?
We better move on.
Yeah, is
that all right?
Yeah, that's all right.
Ask Gus. John O at Windsor asks, how many times have you been to Vegas, and should I book for next year?
I've been to Vegas a number of times. So in my I've been there on holidays to America a number of times, but I used to work with Aristocrat. I spoke about old Lenny Ainsworth years ago, didn't I? I worked for Aristocrat Leisure Industries, and we had a couple of trade shows in Las Vegas. And then there was a time where clubs were venturing to the US hospitality. We were taking clubs to Vegas to learn about the hospitality industry and video poker machines. This is back in the 80s. So I was very lucky. I got some nice trips to Las Vegas back then, and since then I took my parents there on a holiday back in the 90s, and my own family. It's it's an extraordinary place back then. I probably haven't been there for, where are we now? 23. Well, probably haven't been there for 20 years, I suppose. But the thing was how big it was, and the entertainment. I wasn't there for the gambling. I don't think I gambled in Las Vegas, although it's under your nose. They've got poker machines in the toilets. It's an incredible place. They've got poker machines at the airport. Yeah. Poker machines at the breakfast table.
Who'd you see?
When
Which
you sit down,
did you see?
I saw Siegfried and Roy. I saw Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh, you love Rodney Dangerfield, don't you?
There'll be a headline act like Siegfried and Roy, but there might be 15 other acts on from people that you've never heard of who just spend their life entertaining in Vegas.
And all the big stars have their run. You know, they're the in-house.
They're the in-house guest and all that sort of thing.
Can you give us a Rodney Dangerfield joke or a line? I know you know a few of them. What's one of his best?
I was in rough shape last week, but I'm okay now. Rodney Dangerfield, he's great. Get on YouTube and look at Rodney Dangerfield. He had a million jokes. He was brilliant on that night. Siegfried and Roy it's an illusion show. They made 2 elephants disappear on stage.
What?
They walked 2 elephants onto the stage and they disappeared before our eyes. Disappeared.
What? It actually, you were there and you saw the elephants walk on and
I
they
was
vanished.
3 rows from the front, mate.
What?
Elephants disappeared. An aeroplane disappeared.
CGI. It's all got to be laser.
Aeroplane disappeared.
What?
I'm telling you, they had the lions and the tigers and all those sorts of things.
What, did they disappear?
No, they were just doing entertainment. Right. There was a whole affair, whole act. It's a while ago now. I mean, I'm losing my memory, but
wow, elephants disappeared.
Yeah, some great singers, and and
Celine Dion was there for you. Tom Jones.
Yeah, I'd imagine that a lot of the people you see now on these shows, like the Voice and Britain's Got Talent and Americans Got Talent, they find their way to Vegas and they become big stars and big acts over there. And some of the all-time great singers and all that do stints at various places across there. Vegas has exploded, probably even since I've been there. It's a wonderful place. There's that much to see and do. It's never shut.
Have you seen the new
breakfast used to be 99 cents. Lunch used to be $1.99.
Really?
Well, it's all paid for by the gambling dollar. All the food is cheap. The drink is cheap. Everything is cheap. Dining is cheap. Everything. That's what it was when I went there. And it's all just paid for by the gambling dollar.
I could imagine a section of my mates who they'd go there like on $1 or something and they'd dead set do their ass on the first night.
Well, I think
they'd be out of dough.
I think they made 3 movies about that, didn't they?
That's right, they did. You know what? We could replicate The Hangover when Nine's rugby league team goes to Vegas.
Yeah, I think that movie was a bit close to the mark.
The tiger in the bathroom. And Mike Tyson.
Well, a lot of people say, gee, where'd they get the idea for that?
No, that's what happens.
Was there a candid camera around or something?
So for John at Windsor, you think it's a great destination for this experiment?
My good friend Alan Katzman, who's the Rooster supporter I talked about, who's never missing a game, he's already booked his... He put on Twitter the other night. Well, I can't call it Twitter now. It's X, isn't it? Well, they call it X. Anyway, he said, I've booked my accommodation. And I said, well, fly first class, mate, because you deserve it and you should go. And I said, and go for a couple of weeks and see the shows. So he's extended his stay and he's flying business class and
very
he's going to have the trip of a lifetime.
On you, Alan.
And I think a lot of people will do it too. I've urged him to go and see the show. The shows are the feature. That's the thing. And shopping. They've got factory outlets and shop. You can get everything you want. It all so cheap. Don't shop in the casinos. Shop at the factory outlets.
My wife isn't listening.
It's a cheap. Well, it's not cheap if you take them. They spend like there's no. My wife gets shot for.
You need to take your wife.
Shot for the Olympics.
You brushed her from her European holiday. You need to take her to Vegas.
Don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. Everyone was ringing us saying, "Oh, he told them on the podcast."
Your thoughts on the Dolphins? Have they lived up to expectations?
I thought no one listened to this. I think she knew exactly what I was talking about.
Well, actually,
she doesn't listen to my podcast, but she finds out if I mention her.
In addition to our announcement about us having the Pacific Championships at the end of the year, I can exclusively reveal, and we're having a long meeting about it today, Gus, there are plans underway to do 6 tackles from Caesar's Palace next year.
6 tackles from Caesar's Palace?
Yeah.
Can I zoom in?
Yeah. We'll do it at a blackjack table. We'll do it while we're playing. What'd you hit on that for, you dickhead?
I wouldn't mind playing in the World Series of Poker.
Yeah?
I used to love watching that on TV.
I've never learned to play poker.
I played a little bit online just because of what I used to see on TV. I used to love sitting up watching
that's
poker.
Dangerous, play poker online.
No, you play for free. You don't have to, you don't have to gamble. Right. No, you play for free.
Yeah. Poker nights. Have a big poker night.
Yeah.
Get yourself ready for Vegas. Peter Lloyd, thoughts on the Dolphins? Did I see you give them 10 out of 10 last week?
10 out of 10. What more could they do? What more were you expecting? What I said was that with 12 months lead in, and the worst result possible would have been halfway through the season, people saying, why the hell did we go to Redcliffe? Why did we let them in the competition? You know, they can't compete. You know, what a disastrous decision. That would have been the worst result. I don't hear anyone saying that. All right? They've come into the competition. They were immediately competitive from day one. It was an extraordinary start to the competition. No one does that but Wayne Bennett. On a 12-month lead-in, no one does that by Wayne Bennett. I said at the time, I said, this won't last all year. They will be found out towards the back end of the year. But I said, that's no one could have done that. I guarantee you, no one in the game could have done that. Started a new franchise in 12 months and gone out and beaten Roosters on day one and then had the extraordinary run for those first few weeks. It was always going to catch up with them. Their roster is always going to catch up with them, and now they've got to start the actual building phase of what Redcliffe Dolphins are going to look like into the future.
They got battered up by injuries in the mid part of the year too.
Yeah, which is going to happen, you know. But the good thing so they did that. They got their team together. They started with a bomb. They got the attention of the rugby league world. Brilliant. All right? Yeah. Another tick. And they got the attention of the Queensland public. They got an immediate supporter base. So all those, you know, and in Queensland, not everyone follows the Broncos. All right? So now the Broncos people have got someone else to follow. And in Brisbane, it's a little difficult because a lot of them have grown up hating Redcliffe because they follow, you know, Wynnum Manly, or they follow Logan, or they follow Ipswich and all those other clubs up there in the local competition. But they warmed to the Dolphins. You don't hear it called Redcliffe all that often. It's the Dolphins. They've warmed to the Dolphins and what Bennett had created, and they've got on board. So they've got a following. They're doing some great work up north, up through the Harvey Bay and all those areas up there, and they'll do a lot in development for those areas. They've got their own club, which is from under fives right through to first grade. So they're like, you know, they're a big football club anyway.
And they've built the rivalry with Brisbane.
And yeah, absolutely. They've had full houses, you know, so 10 out of 10. What more did you want from them? Yep. In their first year, given they only had 12 months preparation to go in, and no one else could have done it. No one could have done it. I wouldn't advise doing that with the next franchise. You need to give them at least 2 years lead in of when they're coming into the comp and give them some idea of getting roster together and all that as well. They didn't do that for the Dolphins, but they got Peter O'Sullivan and Wayne Bennett, and no two blokes could have done it. No one could have done it.
I agree. Yep.
And they got them up and running. So I gave them 10 out of 10. And it's going to be hard next year because now they're going to be judged on what's happened for the first 10 weeks of this season, and can they repeat that? And it's getting harder for them. They've obviously got some injuries, and I think they're playing West Tigers this week and could easily get beaten. So
they've got so many
injuries. Yeah. And it'll expose their younger players a little bit too early, which happens with bottom clubs. You know, their first 13 or their first 17 might be okay and competitive. As soon as you get 4 or 5 injuries, well, you know, all of a sudden you're exposed. If you haven't got the depth of talent to come in and hold the fort, you're exposing kids that aren't quite ready for it. And if it's on the wrong day against the wrong team, well, that's when you get your 60 and 50 score lines and that dents confidence and, you know, puts everyone on the back foot. The NRL is hard, mate. It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
Because the good sides are so good. That's what makes it so hard.
So he's done a really good job for them this year, is young Katoa, in his first year.
Yeah, brilliant.
Started at 5'8". They threw him into halfback because O'Sullivan got injured. Yeah. Like he's played every week in, week out.
When you think he's 10 years away from his peak.
That's right. He's done an awesome job.
Yeah, he's 10 years away from his peak in that position. You know, so he's got a long way to go. And I think they've been great. They've done everything they could have done. They've captured the imagination of the rugby league world. They've got a supporter base. They started with a bang and put in some great results. They've got their crowd figures. They've got their sponsorship. And they're still kicking. I think 10 out of 10.
Okay, 6 tackles trivia. Good one for Gus this week, and you're a puncher's chance here. From 1 to 3, which players have made the most test appearances for New Zealand?
What's that?
From 1 to 3, which players have made the most test appearances for New Zealand?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Little break, some thinking music, a message from our mates at Bluebet, and we'll come back and look at NRLW and have a preview of round 25. Phil Gould, from 1 to 3, the top 3 most capped players for New Zealand in Test Rugby League. I thought I'd throw this in because, we're talking about the International League at the end of the year. So.
Okay. Ruben Wiki?
1, tick.
Stacey Jones.
3.
Number 2.
Ruben Wiki played 55 games for New Zealand. Stacey Jones 46, and in between there is 1. Here's a forward.
Well, I'm thinking Hugh McGahn or what was the North Sydney boy's name?
Mark Graham.
Mark Graham.
Incorrect. More modern. Far more modern.
Far more modern. Oh, I'm trying to think.
Played for Melbourne. Played for Brisbane. Played for the West Tigers.
Tohu Harris?
Nope.
No. Adam Blair.
Correct.
Adam Blair.
51 tests. Wiki 55. What a career. 55 tests.
Yeah.
Started in the centres, ended up in the front row. 51 for Adam Blair. Stacey Jones 46. In fact, you know what? I've made a little oversight here. Stacey Jones is equal third with the whiz.
Oh, okay.
Gary Freeman.
Gary Freeman, yeah.
There we go. It'd be great to see Test footy back.
Mark Graham was a great player.
They talk about him.
Hugh McGahn was a great player. Because I would have thought there were more Test matches back then than in recent times. So that's why I was sort of looking at an older group.
He was a hard man, Mark Graham, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Don't they talk
He
about
coached them too. He coached the Warriors in their early years.
Did he?
Pretty sure he did.
Oh.
Pretty sure he did.
Did you play against Mark Graham?
No.
He was a bear, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Did he play for anyone else?
Did I play against Mark Graham? I can't remember.
He was late 80s.
Was he?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So he might have come over and you'd finished.
I remember meeting him. In New Zealand when he was retiring, or he was leaving the Warriors. I actually got offered the Warriors job back in the early 2000s.
Whoa, scoop!
When I left, when I retired from coaching at the Roosters.
Did you think about it?
No.
Not for 1 second.
I'd been retired for a week. We'd gone over to watch the end of season Test matches. We went over to watch the junior Kiwis play the New Zealand. Junior Kiwis play the junior Kangaroos, and we went over because Australia were playing in the, and we went for a tour of the Warriors, and we sat down with the management at the time, and
They offered you a job.
They offered me the job. I said, I've just been retired a week. Mark Graham, hold on.
Hold the phone.
Mark Graham.
While Gus is looking at that, I'll recap round 4 of the NRLW. The Knights end the Titans' unbeaten run. The Raiders in a Golden Point thriller. They led 18-6, they got to 18 all, and Zahara Tamara kicked the field goal. She's in super form, and the Roosters are starting to build after an up-and-down start to the year. Now, round 5, NRLW, 11:05 Saturday, Cowboys Sharks, Queensland Country-Bank Stadium. Saturday, 12:50 CommBank Stadium, Tigers Dragons. Saturday, 3:10 p.m, Titans Roosters. Then 2 games Sunday, Knights Broncos and Raiders v Eels. You'll see all that action here on Nine's Wide World of Sports. And, of course, Marley and Rowan with NRLW Weekly.
I definitely played against Mark Graham. He played with North Sydney from 81 to 88. I broke my ankle at North Sydney Oval.
I know you were going to get picked in the Origin team. Do you know what? I reckon the big man might have played with him at North Brisbane.
North Brisbane, 79 and 80.
Was he in? When did Darryl come to Sydney?
He came in 79. He won the Rothmans up there in 78 and came to Panthers in 79, so he would have missed. So he played 19 games for North Brisbane's in 79 and 80. Would have been a young fella. And he came to the North Sydney Bears from 81 to 88 and played 146 games. Then he went over to Wakefield Trinity. He played 28 tests for New Zealand, 12 for Auckland.
12 tests for Auckland?
World Cup game for the rest of the world. He coached 99, that's right, 99 and 2000. He coached 50 games with 18 wins for the Auckland Warriors. And we went over there at the end of 99, and he was sitting at the table, and they offered me a job. He was going to
in front of the existing coach.
He was going to give it away. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, he was going to give it away. Pretty sure that's how the conversation went.
Could you have lived in New Zealand?
I don't mind New Zealand. I like New Zealand, but I said I've been retired a week, mate. I haven't had a game of golf yet.
You still haven't. Here we go. I can't believe it's. Is it really round 25?
I ended up staying retired.
Let's kick off with Thursday night footy. I can't wait to call this one. Cowboys $1.65 on Bluebet. Sharkies $2.35. Now, a boost for the Cowboys with Jeremiah Nane back. Cohen Hess to the bench. Kyle Feltz on the wing. Murray Talangi stays in the centres where he played last week. For Cronulla, Tom Hazelton is back. after missing round 24 with concussion. Cowboys, 2 losses, then a break.
Yep.
They're fresh up from a spell against the Sharkies, who everyone thought was gone, or were gone, and they've won 2 in a row. And if they win this, they could still finish in the top 4. So there's a lot at stake here with the Cowboys trying to sneak into the 8.
Shows you how good the Panthers are going. Panthers beat them 28-0. And I said the Sharks went good and they've won their next 2.
Yep.
So the Panthers beat them 28-0 on the bit.
Good form, guy.
It's good form. It shows
Panther
you how good
form's good form.
Yeah. So, and they have. They were good again the other night. But Cowboys at Townsville, after a couple of losses, is a different kettle of fish. Jeremiah Nanai back. Cowboys have just had those, rough couple of weeks after winning those games in a row to get themselves back in contention. They're just outside the 8 at the moment on for and against with the Rabbitoh. It's one that the Cowboys just can't afford to drop if they want to play finals football, and a tough one for the Sharks. If I go to the draw here and just look at the team lists, I'm looking at the Sharks. Connor Tracy still at fullback. Sonny Katoa, it's a good-looking back line, very good. Braden Trindle's done well at 5'8". Toby Braden Umali, Nakora and Wade Graham is in the side. Cameron McGuinness, Williams, Hunt, Hazelton and Moylan on the bench. Strong bench for... Look at the Cowboys bench.
Look at the Cowboys pack.
Look at the bench. Granville, Cohen Hess, Helam Lukey and Griffin Neem. That's strong, isn't it?
That's very strong. Now, Hess has started every game this year until this week. His first game off the bench.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go... There's no Valentine Holmes.
No.
That would have been the icing on the cake.
It is in Townsville, though.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to go Cowboy.
Friday, early game. Warriors, $1.24. Manly, $4.
Daniel Anderson Stadium, Auckland.
Yes. Very good. Very nice that they're trying to support the former Warriors coach who is going through a bad time at the moment. Everyone in the game's thinking of Daniel Anderson. Charles is back.
Yep. Manly were good the other night for a while, and against the Panthers, so that's good form. Warrior. My thing with the Warriors, right? Warriors haven't played finals football for 11 seasons, 12 seasons or something. It's a while.
Yeah, it was. It was 2014.
Yeah, so they haven't 9 seasons. So they haven't gone into September for quite a long time. None of these players have been into September for quite a while. The season can get very long, and I'm just starting to feel like it's getting a bit long for them.
Really?
Yeah, I think they were in better form a month ago than they are right now. I don't know if they're going to be able to freshen up any players. They're kind of still walking. I think top 4 would be a great result for them. Top 2 with a home semi-final would be wonderful. I don't think they can get there, but...
Top 4, they definitely can.
Yeah, I think that... they will try to finish as high as they can. And then September's another month. It's like, it's like extra time on extra time if you haven't been used to it. That's where the good clubs rise to the top at the end because they're used to that, November to October type year. That last 4 weeks can be very taxing if you're not used to going there.
They've had a long stint at home, though. They haven't had to travel. They had the week off. And then
it helps, but they still travel every second week when they come to Australia.
Yeah.
A few teams have taken their games over there, which have helped. But it's still going to be a long season for a lot of those players in that team who have not played a lot of finals football, and certainly not recently. So they've got to lift another level. And just in the last couple of weeks, I've felt as though they've been vulnerable. Certainly more than they were 5 or 6 weeks ago, where they were really, really going well.
Thought you just gave Warriors here, but you're entertaining Manly.
Well, I am. Manly last throw of the dice. No, I'm going to go Warrior, but nervously.
Well, talk about last throws of the dice. Parramatta Roosters, Friday night footy from CommBank Stadium. Must watch. Para $2.35, Roosters $1.60. Back for Parramatta comes Regan Campbell-Gillard and Mike Acevo. Out goes Mitchell Moses with a eye socket or cheekbone or both. Terrible loss. Arcee to 6, Brown to 7. Angus Crichton returns for the Roosters, but the big one is Sam Walker, who is named in 18. And you'd have to think he'd come in after playing 80 minutes of New South Wales Cup footy.
Well, last week in New South Wales Cup, which I think was his first game back, was it? He made 21 runs for 135 metres. He had 2 try assists, 2 line break assists. He had 2 tackle breaks. He made 17 tackles, only missed 2. So he's had a pretty good game back. He played the full 80 minutes, which you've got to if you want to be an NRL player. You've got to be playing 80 minutes in reserve grade. So it looks like an accomplished, well-involved stint for 80 minutes to give him confidence to come back and play football. Roosters, they led the Dolphins. Dolphins led 8-0 10 seconds before half-time. That try on half-time was a killer. And I've got to be honest, it's not as though I felt as though the Roosters were definitely going to catch them. It was the try right on half-time that I think, got them close enough, and then they were able to come out and score first in the second half, and they got away from them. But it wasn't overly convincing either. Eels, though, you can't dismiss the fact that they got absolutely lapped, and now Mitchell Moses is not playing. Regan Campbell-Gillard is a big in that will help. Last throw of the dice. Look,
Home ground.
I don't think Roosters are going all that well that you could teeth them at certainty against anyone. I see the Roosters a favourite, but I think that's a reaction to the Eels' form the other night. Look, if Mitchell Moses was playing, I'd be tipping the Eels.
Yeah.
He's not playing, and I don't think they can cover that.
Brown to halfback.
Yes, I'm going to go. Rooster.
Okay. Tigers, Dolphins, CommBank Stadium, 3 o'clock Saturday. Tigers, can they get this win? They're $1.37 favourite against the Dolphins, who have got a lot out at 3.10.
They are. They're down and out, and they're missing a lot of players. And the Tigers have been in good form. Tigers could easily have won their last 2 or 3 games against quality opposition. So I'm tipping Tiger to come back.
Okay.
I just got a nice text message from Tim Sheens. I sent him a message this morning. So I'll just read that here. Okay.
Greetings, Tim. 5:30 Saturday, Titans $9 at home against the Panthers at $1.06 with Luai and also Mitch Kenny back in.
Couple of big ins, isn't it? Yes, Panther wins that one.
Okay. Dragons, $5.25 against the Storm at $1.16. Saturday night footy, you can see it here on 9. It's from Wynn Stadium, Wollongong.
Yes. Storm. Crikey, what a win.
Yep.
I didn't see that coming with the Raiders. Certainly not by that magnitude. So, again, Mr. Bellamy, cream rises to the top at the back end of the field, back end of the season. They'll be too hard to beat. They will beat the Dragon.
Okay. From McDonald Jones Stadium, Newcastle, where it is already a sellout, Gus. Already.
Yep.
The Knights looking to make it 7 in a row against South Sydney.
Yep.
Jackson Hastings' name, Andrew George has said to me he doesn't expect him to play, which probably means he will. Bradman Best is back. Now, for South Sydney, Michael Cheekham's onto the bench for Ben Lovett. However, Hame Sele and Tavita Totola are named on the extended bench, and they may get, if not both, maybe one of their big boppers back, which is what they've been missing. Newcastle, they nearly lock up a place in the finals if they win this, and Souths, if they lose, ooh.
Yeah, so I think the Knights can win. Bradman Best back in the team. They had a big win on the weekend. They're in scintillating form. If Hastings plays, I think they win. If he doesn't play, it tips it back the other way a little bit. I note that the Rabbitohs are favourite. Gee whiz. That's a good side.
Winning form's good form, Gus.
It is. I'm going to go Knight.
Okay, and then Sunday footy from Canberra. The Raiders $1.34. Bulldogs $3.35. Canberra trying to bounce back. And Jarrod Croker returns, part of his farewell tour. And Jacob Preston suspended, obviously. So into the back row comes Corey Waddell. And you're hoping that the Doggies can go down there and put up a better fight than last week.
So we're going Cowboy, Warrior, Rooster, Tiger, Panther, Storm, Knight.
Beautiful. Got through plenty of material today. Thank you.
All good.
See you over the weekend, and make sure you join us for NRL coverage on Nines Wide Water Sports Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, both the men's and the women's, and we'll be back for more Six Tackles with Gus next week.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.